Okay, thank you so much for that introduction. That surely was kind. And I'm so sorry that I can't be with you today in person. And but I'm glad to be sharing a message electronically. And I do have a wonderful message that I want to share tonight, and it's one of health and hope and transformational health, literally. But it's up to you because this isn't something that's mandated, but it is a journey for all of us. So I would ask you before we start, how many of you would love to have abundant wellness? Or in other words, how many of you would love to have the optimal health that you could possibly have? And I'm not sure, I can't see you, but I'm guessing that you're of my vintage and my colleagues, and I'll just say senior citizens. I'm guessing most of you are 50 or over. And so this message is for you, it's for me, it's for anyone that would like to achieve this optimal health. So what are the things that we are so concerned about today, specific things? And I won't ask you the question, but I'll address what I think you're going to be saying. And one is cancer. Everybody is so afraid of cancer. I don't want it myself. My mother had it. I've had other family members. My mother died with colon cancer. But so many people are concerned about the number one killer in this country, and that's cardiovascular disease, primarily heart attacks and strokes, or things that lead up to that, like high blood pressure. I'm from Mississippi, and there's a disease in Mississippi that's epidemic. It's called diabetes, and it's a disease of affluence. It's a disease that doesn't have to happen, but it happens, and it happens oh so often. Another issue that we're all very concerned about is memory lapse or memory loss, and that could be dementia or it could be Alzheimer's. And we are all concerned about losing control or losing our independence. And what we really fear is, though, losing our minds. And I'm right there with you. And so of the things that I mentioned and other chronic diseases, and you may think of some, but all chronic diseases are influenced by one common denominator. Would you have any idea what that common denominator is? How many of you have heard the term inflammation? Well, this book was written about 25 years, 30 years ago, and it's about the silent killer. It's called inflammation. So here's a trick question. Before you answer, I would have you think about this. Is inflammation good or bad? Most people say bad. But inflammation is the body's response to an injury or to a negative aspect in the body. For example, when you sprain your ankle swells, it's painful, it gets red, and that's called inflammation. But it's the body's response to healing that sprained ankle. We don't realize it, but when we are in the sun too long, or when we are unprotecting of our eyes, we have cataracts, and that's a result of a lifetime of inflammation, primarily from the sun, but there are other factors. So one of the leading factors that contribute to inflammation is smoking. And just a bad habit. And too many of us have too many of these bad habits. Another influencer that contributes to in this inflammation is stress. How many of you have a stressful life? And how many of you have stress that you don't have to have? And many of us, it's self-induced, and because we're working more jobs than we need to, or more hours. That was one of my cases, just working too many hours that contributed to my stress. But what we don't realize, or what most people don't realize, is that the majority of these influences of stress are things that we do ourselves as part of the way that we live. We call that lifestyle. So how many of you realize that there are foods that actually contribute to inflammation? And there are foods that contribute to reducing inflammation. Some promote inflammation and some reduce it. Those that promote inflammation are typically processed foods, sugar, animal source, all foods, meat, for example, and artificial foods. Foods that reduce inflammation are those that are eaten in a natural way without a whole lot of artificial change, and that's part of the processing. So, but we get to choose every day. Most people eat 3 meals a day, and most of the time we make choices that aren't the best for our overall health. So when I ask the question, who would like abundant wellness or optimal health, there is a roadmap or a formula that I'll share with you that will help you if you would like to improve your future, and especially through the foods that you choose to eat or the foods that you choose to avoid. So foods that reduce inflammation are primarily plant food, and we call it whole plant food or whole food. I'm not inviting or asking any of you to become vegans. That means that's all you eat, but that really should be your focus. From today forward, you should try to eat as many different varieties of plant food as you can possibly do every day. So a friend of mine said that the real problem in this country can be boiled down to 3 things. He said breakfast, lunch, and dinner. These are the choices that we get to make over and over and over. And if we could make good ones consistently, it's amazing how that influences your future and your future health, giving you some hope that you could reduce the likelihood for all of these chronic diseases. It's as simple as just being consistent. So when we talk about different plant foods, we talk about variety. And so it's not just eating the same foods day after day after day, but eating different foods for each meal. And these plant foods are also a great source of water. Some of you know that watermelon and cucumber are better than 95% water. And most plants are at least 85% water. So that's a great way to help hydrate our bodies and to have an intake of water. So the human body is pretty unique. It is very forgiving, and you can have a bad day. You can cheat in your diet, and tomorrow starts a brand new opportunity, though, to start over. So, how many plant foods a day servings do you think is recommended for people that want to have this optimal health or this abundant wellness? Well, years ago, it was a minimum of 5, and that 5 has increased from 5 to 7 to 9 to 12 or more. And if you have a life, in other words, if you're active, if maybe you would like to play a sport or exercise, you need more than 12 servings. If you're a cancer survivor, if you're pregnant, if you're taking medication, you need more. In fact, for athletes, it's recommended today at least 15 servings. The serving's only half a cup, so you would think that would be easy, and it is. I will say it's simple, not necessarily easy, but it surely is simple to just focus on eating plant foods. So a serving, if it's a half a cup, then that means that if you want this optimal health, if you're over 50, if you're taking a medicine, if you've survived or had a cancer or a medical scare, it means that you really need to be eating the equivalent of 8 servings, excuse me, not 8 servings, but 8 cups of plant food every day. A serving's a half a cup. So how many of you have ever even thought of this in terms of, can this really change my health? Can this benefit my health? Well, I hope today to inspire you to start thinking in that way. So we are in a place where it's not easy, but it surely is simple to improve your health. And science today is really focusing on the specifics, the biology, the chemistry, and especially the physiology of what's going on in the human body, and why so many plant foods or so many plant opportunities every day can affect your overall health. You may have heard of the father of medicine. His name is Hippocrates. And when I became a doctor and I recited the Hippocratic Oath, this was in honor of this man who 2,500 years ago said that death begins in the gut, the intestinal tract, the gastrointestinal system. So there's been in the past decade, there's been so much research on the effect of what goes on in our gut. And when I say gut, we're talking primarily about the large intestine, also called the colon. So how many of you realize that you have bacteria and other microorganisms, viruses, protozoan, other tiny microbes all over your body? They're found in every orifice. They're in your, I won't go into all the details, but they're everywhere. But the majority of them are found in your colon. And what we know today is that the health of your gut, the health of your intestinal tract, determines your overall health, your lifespan, what you will die from, and how soon that you will contract it is directly related to the health of what's happening in your colon right now. I've got multiple books right here about gut health. Here are just a few of them. They're all saying essentially the same thing. They're all saying that the better we feed your beneficial bacteria, the better your health, the longer you live, and the lower your risk of developing any chronic disease. So does that sound exciting to you? This is how simple health is today, and this is how simple lowering your risk for all causes of disease or dying is related to what you're eating. So I used to tell these pregnant moms when I was delivering babies years ago that what you're eating is for your energy and your fuel, but it's also for the development of your growing baby, your fetus, your embryo in the first part of that pregnancy. And today we're telling patients that you need to be thinking about eating for not just you and your offspring, but for you and all of these trillions with a T. That's 12 zeros. That's how many bacteria we have in the colon. And they're divided into beneficial and non-beneficial. And when we have beneficial bacteria that predominate, we have better health than when the non-beneficial predominate. And this is directly related to the foods that we decide to feed these bacteria. So what is it that feeds your unhealthy bacteria, your non-beneficial? They're called Firmicutes. And it's sugar and processed food, it's animal source foods, it's simple carbs, it's garbage and junk, but it's what we like. So we eat for taste and pleasure in the South, and we need to eat for health and wellness and future. So think about feeding your beneficial bacteria. And what is it that feeds your good bacteria? It's fiber and compounds that are trapped inside the fiber called phytonutrients. A lot of people know these phytonutrients as phytos. Others call them antioxidants, but they are beneficial for all of us, and they reduce inflammation across the board. So the more plant food, the better bacterial balance. And I know some of you have heard of a term called leaky gut, and it literally is promoting inflammation like no other part of the body. Most of the inflammation that we produce every day is a result of activity in the intestinal tract. So when we have too many of these actions from this negative, this non-beneficial bacteria, it's producing an endotoxin that's contributing to even more inflammation. And when that inflammation gets in the bloodstream and then goes all over the body, it oftentimes parks in the joints. And that's why we have arthritis. Or it might end up in our thyroid, and it causes our thyroid gland to be over or underactive or not functioning optimally. And when that inflammation gets in our brain and it causes inflammation in our brain tissue, it contributes to these things that we fear, like losing our memory and leading to dementia and especially Alzheimer's. So there's an awful lot of research today that is centered on what's going on in the gut, and the good bacteria are producing chemicals that are so beneficial, and the bad bacteria are producing chemicals that are so detrimental or harmful, that literally accelerate aging and disease and dying. So I want to stop at that point, and I want to tell you some stories about three people. The first one is about a young lady named Gail that grew up in a small southern town. She was loved by everyone. She had a beautiful voice. She loved drama and acting. She was a cheerleader. Everyone loved Gail. And she loved reading books. Her father was a teacher, and she loved adventure. And she determined early in life that she wanted to go to California. So she had a dream, and she made a decision that she was going to make that happen. So she was not a good student, even though she loved to read, but she graduated high school, went to a community college, got an associate degree, and she, after making that decision, she made it a decision of how she was going to get to California. So she applied. At that time, this was 50 years ago. There was a Delta Airlines office in her small town, and she went and she got an interview, and they hired her, and she was a flight attendant. And she was really good because she really liked people. And she ended up changing her home base from that small town to New Orleans, and then from there to California. And that was her dream. So her dream initially was to end up in Hollywood. So she did go to Los Angeles, but she did not make it in pictures. But she met a man at church and married and had 7 kids, and she lived the life that she wanted. 2 things about her story. One is she had a dream, and 2, she made a decision, and she made it happen. She knew what she wanted. She made it happen. I want to tell you about another young man who grew up in a little bit more affluent family, and went to the best school in the state, and went to school out of state because he followed some of his friends to this school. And long story, his freshman year, his first year in college, he flunked out. He flunked out because he didn't go to class. He did not apply himself. So his father had a stern conversation with him and said, I'll give you a second chance, but you'll go to school in state and you'll make better grades, and or you can go anywhere you want to, but you can pay for your school. So the dad gave him tough love. Long story, he came home, went to a much smaller school, applied himself, met the right young lady in his life, and he was on the dean's list, did really well. He ended up going to dental school. He, in fact, got an Air Force scholarship that paid for his dental school, so he owed him some time in the Air Force, in the service, in the military. But he also had a dream when he was young. He loved language, and he wanted to go to different countries and learn the language. So he did, and especially because he was in the Air Force. So his vehicle was the military, and so he went all over the world. He went to Europe, to Asia. They even sent him back to school, and he became an oral surgeon. He's now in Kansas, living the life. But two things about that young man, and one is he also had a dream. He made a decision when he came home. The decision was, I've got to straighten my life. And he did. He decided that's what he wanted. His wife was a great encouragement. And his vehicle was the military. So it allowed him to realize his dream. I want to tell you about a third young man. And when he was a kid, he read a lot and dreamed a lot and had adventure in his blood. His mother traveled all over the world, and she instilled in him that all education is not in the classroom. So, but he read about a ship when he was in junior high called the good ship Hope. And from that day forward, he wanted to serve people on that ship and go all over the world and serve the underprivileged. So he did go to medical school, and he's been serving people ever since. So that first young lady, Gail, was a girl that I knew really well in high school. And I followed her dream and followed her decision. And that second young man was my second son. And he's now very successful. But he made a decision and he followed his dream. He just needed a vehicle, as did that third person, the third story. And that's my story. I ended up going to medical school and then teaching medical students for over 30 years. And that was my dream. And now, and I made that decision early on as well. But now my role has switched. I still love serving people and helping them and simplifying this human body and the physiology, helping people understand that it's not a complicated thing, but first you must make a decision. So all of you that are in the audience, have you made a decision about where you are right now in midlife? And do you want to continue doing what you're doing and just living by default? Or do you want to live on purpose and have more energy and less risk of developing any chronic disease? And so my advice to you would be to listen to these ladies, and they're going to talk about something that I've been doing for 25 years. And it's something that's augmented my diet with more plant food in an easy, convenient form. And it's reducing inflammation. It is a novel concept. It's thinking out of the box, but it's something that everybody can do. And I will tell you, when I was practicing medicine and I could get my patients to see value and add this to their diet, it's plant powders that are in a capsule or in a chewable form, or plant powders that we use as a protein source to make smoothies or other food forms. And so this is functional food. So what does that mean? It means food that affects the body in a positive way. And in this way, it reduces inflammation and lowers your risk of developing any chronic disease. So it's been a pleasure being with you. I'm so sorry I couldn't be there in person, but I hope to see you in the near future, the next time that I'm in your area. So thank you so much, Denise, for allowing me to do this electronically. It's not the same we lose so much when we don't have the energy and the contact in person. But I do want to appreciate all of your time and attention to the message that I shared with you today. It is, it's not necessarily easy, but it surely is simple. And the magic is in doing this every day, every single day, being consistent. So Denise, I'll turn it back over to you, and thank you so much for allowing me to have this time with your friends. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Odom. One request, we couldn't see the books that you had. There's 3 books. Can you lift them up a little higher? We couldn't see on the screen. We'd love to see those books. And that way, anyone that wants to have the title and the author, we'd love for them to have that. Yes, I can. It's lift up just a little higher. Yeah, lift. There you go. Okay. And who's the author on that? Chilton.
Floyd Chilton, MD.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you.
Inflammation Nation. This was years ago. Everybody should have read this. I didn't, but I should have. It should be required reading for all healthcare professionals. So this started the journey for me.
Thank you.
I've read over 30 on gut health. These are just some of the ones that really impacted me the most.
Okay, and what's the name on that? It's hard to read the light.
The Good Gut. It says taking control of your weight, your mood, and your long-term health.
Perfect, thank you.
They're all connected. This one says 10% human.
Alan Cullen. Okay, thank you.
That's by Elena Cullen. And 10% human means that 10% of the cells in our human body are human cells. 90% of all the cells in this meta-organism that we called a human being is bacteria. It's over 60 trillion bacteria.
Oh, okay.
So the bacteria are found in the intestinal tract, and this one is called just gut by Mr. Enders, Enders.
Okay, thank you.
This one is called the microbiome diet. The genetic material of the bacteria is called your microbiome. And so it's called the enteric or intestinal microbiome. These are your bacteria, good or bad. It's all of them. And it's the balance that determines your health. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. So
wow.
I'll share one more, more visual. This is what used to be the food guide pyramid. It's now called myplate.gov, My Plate. And it says that for every meal, every plate should look like this. 1/4 of the plate should be vegetables. 1/4 of the plate should be fruit. 1/4 of the plate should be protein. Yeah, that's up here, protein.
Right.
And it says that most of that protein should be divided. It's not just animal source, but plants also are sources of protein. So it says that half of that protein should be plant sourced, like beans and lentils. Okay. And then down here, it's the other 1/4 is grains. It says that those should be whole grains. Okay. So why whole grains? Because it has more fiber, and fiber feeds the good bacteria. Okay.
That's a good chart. Thank you, Dr. Odom.
Visuals, yes. Thank you again for allowing me this time.
Well, we look forward to see you in person soon. Thank you so much for
Thank
doing
you.
this call with us. We so
Thank you.
appreciate it.
You're so
All
welcome.
righty.
Thank you.
Bye bye. Bye
Bye.
bye.
Bye-bye.